Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before. Both of the beers that I've had from these guys already have left a hell of an impression, so I have to just say I'm very curious to see how this one turns out. So for this review we are going to go to the lighter end of the spectrum and we're going to have a look at my third beer from Dead End Brew Machine, who come from Glasgow. So this particular beer is called Total Fury. It comes in at 7.2% ABV. They're describing it as a Passionfruit IPA, but I've seen this one listed on Untappd as being a hazy New England style IPA. So yeah, very, very curious to see how this one turns out. Fingers crossed it's another good beer, but you know, based on my previous experiences with this brewery, I do have very high hopes for it. So yeah, the other two beers that I've reviewed from these guys so far, the last one was the Sun Gone, which was one of my Christmas Day 2020 beer reviews, and that was just a big beast of an Imperial Stout. And then maybe about a year ago I also reviewed the Nightland, which is awesome. That's one of the best Imperial Stouts I think that I've ever reviewed on the channel. Actually, I was seriously impressed with that one, and that was what got me onto this brewery actually. But yeah, been impressed with the beers that I've had from these guys so far. I do hope that I can get a hold of the Boris the Crusher at some stage. They've got a barley wine called Boris the Crusher that I would love to have a go at, but I haven't seen a can of that before actually, so that is definitely something that I will need to keep an eye out for during this trip home, and fingers crossed I can get that reviewed for you on the channel at some point fairly soon. But in the meantime we have this one, the Total Fury, 7.2% Passionfruit IPA, or a New England kind of hazy fruit IPA I guess you could say. So yeah, definitely nice to return to Dead End Brew Machine once again. Hopefully this is another good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. But yeah, this is one of the Scottish breweries that I do keep an eye out for when I'm home. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Dead End Brew Machine before. This is review number 3, as I mentioned earlier. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you, and that is being added to regularly at the moment because I am enjoying a little bit of time at home in the motherland. Fingers crossed we can continue to add to that regularly over the next little while, more than we have been over the last wee while. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Dead End Brew Machine then, on to my brewery notes. So, Dead End Brew Machine, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Glasgow, and the company was founded by Irishman Chris Lewis, who was a very highly regarded home brewer in the city. So he and friend Jake Griffith, who now owns Upfront Brewing, they'd won the Institute of Distilling's home brewing competition back in 2012, and this inspired both of them to go and set up their own companies. So Chris had apparently started winemaking back in about 2008, and he says that his wine was pretty awful actually, but he later learned that it was much quicker to make beer, and so he went to his local home brewing shop, which turned out to be run by Scott Williams of the famous Williams Brothers Brewery. So he was later convinced to launch his home brews, you know, basically to take his home brews and turn them into commercial beers, by Derek Hoy of the now defunct Hippo Beer Group in Glasgow. They had their bar, of course, and the shop, both of which sadly shut down. But at the moment, these guys are operating as a gypsy brewery. So most of their beers were originally brewed at the Fallon Brewery, which is in Kippen in Stirlingshire, quite close to me. They also brewed a number of their beers at Drygate, which is next to the Tennant's Brewery, right in the centre of Glasgow actually. That's also co-owned by Williams Brothers. But recently they've been brewing their beers at 71 Brewing up in Dundee, and also at Overtone Brewing in Yoker in Glasgow. And I think this one was actually brewed at Overtone, if I remember rightly. But as of December 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 70 different kinds of beer, and they have done some absolutely absolute beasts as far as I can gather. There's a lot of Imperial Stouts from these guys as far as I can see. I don't think there are quite as many things on the lighter end of the spectrum. But these guys are definitely one of the best brewers in Scotland in my opinion. You know, Overtone are getting a lot of hype at the moment, but you know, if these guys were brewing on a slightly bigger scale, I would think that they would get roughly the same level of hype actually. Overtone are getting a lot of hype just now because their beers have made it down into England. They've always been great, but I think more and more people are becoming aware of them now actually. So yeah, it is cool to see the Scottish breweries getting a little bit more recognition actually, and I'm sure these guys, if they scale up a little bit, will be the next one to come out on the map. Vault City and Overtone are probably the two most notable Scottish breweries at the moment. So yeah, this is definitely one of the breweries that I would recommend that you check out if you get the chance. I think you can only really get their beers in Glasgow at the moment. This is one that I bought from Valhalla's Goat, and I don't think I've seen them in any other shops outside of Glasgow actually, but do correct me on that in the comments section below if I'm saying something wrong there. If you let me know where you've tasted these beers actually, let me know where you've bought them. It would be nice to see that they're getting their beers up to Aberdeen and Inverness and over to Edinburgh and things like that as well. But yeah, very good Scottish brewery and one that I would highly recommend that you check out. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Dead End Brew Machine for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. 70 beers for how old this brewery is pretty impressive actually. But yeah, let's get on and have a taste of this beer then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one once again before we open up. There you can see Total Fury. It is quite common that they have their beers, the name of the beer written on the kind of right side of the can if you like, but there you can see nice kind of, I don't know if this is supposed to be like abstract art. I'm the most artistically illiterate person, as you know, more into my music of course, but there you can see there's a sort of angel or something in there, like a stone angel or something like that. But you can see on the side of the can here, there is Dead End Brew Machine. So yeah, pretty cool this one. It tells you on the side that this one was brewed at Overtone Brewing Company. It says brewed by Dead End Brew Machine at Overtone Brewing Company, Unit 19, New Albion Estate, which is over in Yoker in the kind of western part of central Glasgow. So yeah, should be pretty nice this one. 440ml can, 7.2% ABV. The stats that I have on this beer is that it was hopped with Strata, which is a new American hop, about 11 to 12% alpha acid. It gives you quite a bit of a berry quality and a sort of grapefruity note if I remember rightly. But it's also got Citra and Nelson Sauvin in it. We know these hops quite well. Strata is a newer one to me. Citra gives you lots of mango and little kind of fruit complexities, whereas Nelson Sauvin is that distinctive New Zealand white, green, grapey sort of thing. Citra gives you about 14% alpha acid. Nelson Sauvin is a beast at 16%, and it's also got 4 different yeast strains in it apparently to kind of up the fruity esters, and it uses 60 kilograms of passion fruit in the brew. I'm not sure how big the brew was, but 60 kilograms of passion fruit added into this one. So yeah, this should be pretty nice. 440ml can, another purchase from the wonderful Valhalla's Goat at Kelvin Bridge in Glasgow. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very, very curious to see what this one has in store for us. No kind of pop as we opened that up there. That could be very good, or it could be a little bit worrying. Hopefully this beer is still in good condition. It certainly looks it. There are a few little bits of passion fruit floating around in this one. You can see it has sedimented a little bit, but I'm sure it should still be in pretty good condition. Should be okay. There we go. I just rinsed my glass as well and it's got carbonation sticking already. That's annoying. Yeah, but there you go. Certainly does look the part actually. I think it must have just been bits of sediment. There's no sediment left in this can actually. And it does say that it has, it did say that it has wheat in it as well, so that would kind of make sense. So yeah, this one seems like it's going to be a big fruity, wheaty IPA, I guess we could say. So yeah, let's just get rid. Yeah, you can see the carbonation just sticking to the glass. I rinsed this glass right before the video, but you can see it was a little bit steamy when we started it up. But anyway, so yeah, as you can see and as you would expect from a sort of hazy IPA these days, this one's poured a lovely, quite bright yellow, almost a kind of mango juice colour. As you'll know if you've watched the channel before, I do like to compare these kind of hazy fruity IPAs to different fruit juices. This one, the kind of bright yellow colour that this one has, is a lovely kind of big bright mango juice colour. You can see that this beer poured with about a half finger of a frothy white head. That's just faded away to be a very kind of thin foamy layer, but there is a little bit of a kind of ring, a white foamy ring around the edge of the glass. There are quite a few little bits of sediment floating around in this one. I'm guessing that it's going to be fruity particles, to be honest with you, so maybe this beer has been sitting for a little bit actually. But when I heard that they had an IPA, I was just curious to try this. Does it have a canned on date? Best before the 30th of the 7th, 2021. So I'm not sure how much they'll put on the can, but I'm hoping this one hasn't been sitting for a couple of months in Valhalla's Goat. Fingers crossed it hasn't been. Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure I saw this beer on Facebook actually. I think this one is a fairly recent release, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. But nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. So let's take a closer look at the aroma, like I said. Oh yeah, no, it does smell. It does smell pretty good. Don't think we've got much to worry about in this one. It might well just be the temperature of the fridge, to be honest. Maybe the fridge is a little bit too cold. But yeah, straight away with this one, it smells lovely and white. It smells lovely and smooth in the malt base. I would have guessed from the aroma of this one that it had a little bit of oat in it, because it really does have a little bit of that kind of smoothness to it. So definitely some nice kind of soft white bready notes in there. If you, pardon me, take the aroma in a little bit more deeply, you do get a little bit of kind of wheaty bitiness out of this one. Yeah, definitely a little bit of wheaty bitiness out of this beer for sure. Yeah, so yeah, it does have a lovely kind of soft base to it, this one. A little bit of wheaty bitiness, some soft white bready notes, and it does almost come across as if it has a little bit of a kind of oaty character to it, to be honest with you. But other than that, I don't think there's too much to report on the malty side of things with this beer. It really just comes across as a straight white bready beer. Not quite kind of creamy enough to be like a full New England IPA, if that makes sense. More of an almost sort of, it's almost got the same kind of vibe as like a New England paleo type thing. It's got just a bit of lightness to the malt base. But if they're brewing a fruit forward IPA like this, then they probably would do that. They would tone down the oatiness and things, because if you put too much oats in a beer like this, if you put too much oat in the malt base of this kind of beer, it is going to start to border on the almost kind of Berliner Weisse type thing. But of course this one has the hops in it, so maybe that statement is a little bit redundant. But yeah. But yeah, I have to say, the malt base on this one is really nice. Straight up soft white bread, a little bit of wheaty bitiness, almost a little bit of that oaty smoothness in there, even though there's no oats in it. It does come across really quite nicely. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, there is a tiny little bit of earthiness comes out of this one. You do get some nice floral aromaticity in there, and also a bit of lighter grassiness. But as you would expect from a fruit forward IPA, much of the green component is kind of being suppressed, if you like, by the fruity additions. You get that in the flavour. You can also usually detect it in the aroma. The beers, if you add fruit into kind of hazy IPAs like this and hop forward beers, they do lose just a little bit of the pungency to the aroma and flavour when it comes to the green component. So yeah, not as much. You do get a wee bit of grassiness out of this one and a wee bit of floral aromaticity. If anything, the green component of the beer leans towards that grassy side of the spectrum. But yeah, it comes across quite nicely. So yeah, you can definitely smell that sort of that kind of big, juicy, soft, passion fruity quality coming out of this one. It almost smells kind of akin to like Simcoe, the kind of vibe that you get from the Simcoe hop. It's got lovely, soft, tropical notes to it, that. But yeah, the passion fruit really dominates this one, as you would expect. You get a lovely kind of soft mango quality out of this one, which will be the Citra all the way. You can also, if you take the aroma in quite deeply, you can also get... you can definitely get the kind of more oily, white, green, grapey thing from the Nelson Sauvin as well. Yeah, and of course I think the Citra is going to kind of amplify that. The Citra and Nelson Sauvin is quite a classic combination for IPAs. Because of the softer, fruity components, it really works very well in these hazy kind of New England type beers actually. So I can see why they've used that one. But you do get a wee tiny touch of an almost kind of... It's almost like a little touch red curranty or strawberry-like or something like that. You can get a little bit of that berry note from the strata, but not overly much in my opinion. This really comes across as a very soft tropical fruity beer. You know, you've got the passion fruit in there, which comes across really soft like Simcoe, some juicy mango, white green grapey notes, maybe a little bit of gooseberry, and perhaps you could argue that there's a wee bit of a kind of apricot-y type note to this one, to be honest with you. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is quite nice, and it is quite soft and kind of juicy, to be honest with you. So take a little bit of time and just ponder over that aroma before you get stuck into the beer. But yeah, we're going to have a taste of this one now and see how we get on. I think this one will be quite an interesting beer. So yeah, this one is the Total Fury, a 7.2% Passionfruit IPA, as the guys at Dead End Brew Machine are calling it, from Glasgow over on the west coast in Scotland. Very, very curious about this beer. Big thank you to the guys again at Valhalla's Goat for this one. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skull, cheers. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's definitely more of a kind of fruit. I would describe that more as a fruit beer, rather than, I mean, it does have a bit of the IPA component to it, but it's definitely more of a fruit IPA than a New England, for sure, 100%. The fruit's really quite kind of prominent in this one. You can see, just as I'm sugaring this beer around, you can see the kind of haze and stuff in this beer just kind of swirling around a little bit. So yeah, definitely more of, it's definitely more of a kind of fruit beer, this, than a kind of New England haze sort of thing. But yeah, it is nice. It does come across very, very nicely. So thumbs up to Dead End Brew Machine for this one. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that I'm not drinking this one in its prime condition. But even as it stands, that's a really damn solid IPA. I can imagine what it would have been like when it's really fresh. I do wonder if I've just cooled this one down a bit too much, but I think it has been sitting in the shop in Valhalla's Goat for a little bit actually, so we will bear that in mind as we go through this review. But I can imagine what this beer would have been like when it's fresh, because just now it comes across really quite nicely. I can just see the bits of sediment kind of going down on this one. But yeah, thumbs up to Dead End Brew Machine for this one. Does it strike me in the same way that the two Imperial Stouts have? Maybe not quite. Maybe not quite. But I think they've just got a really, really solid base recipe for the Imperial Stouts. But could this beer have done that if it was completely, you know, straight, you know, fresh in the cans and things? Probably could have, to be honest with you. I think in its prime, this beer probably would be up there with the sort of things you are getting out of the likes of Overtone and some of the other really good breweries in Scotland just now. So yeah, this I think is a pretty damn interesting beer. So, you know, thumbs up to Dead End Brew Machine for this one. This is different from what I've had from them before. I don't know what Chris would consider as being his best beer. I'd love to get him on for one of these kind of meet the brewery segments at some point, and you know, do an interview and stuff with him, because he seems to really know what he's doing. It'd be interesting to talk to him about what he thinks are his best beers and stuff like that. So maybe that's something we can arrange in the future, either in February or in September, when I'm next going to be home. But yeah, we'll see about that for sure. But yeah, I think this one is pretty damn nice actually. So thumbs up to Dead End Brew Machine. Let's try and break down the flavour of this one then. So straight away with this beer, you get a lovely soft kind of white bready quality that just blankets the middle of your tongue. It feels like it's a kind of pale malty Munich malt type base to this one. Lovely soft white bready component across the middle of your palate. As you go towards the back third of your tongue, you can feel the wheaty notes coming out of this one. The wheat just kind of thickens the beer up a little bit, gives it a wee bit more smoothness. So yeah, I do like how that goes together for sure. So you can feel that the breadiness just thickens up on that back third of the palate there. So as you come further forward from that back third of your tongue, you can feel that as you move into the middle third of your palate, the thickness just drops away a little bit, and then you get, as I say, the smooth pale malty, Munich malty type thing in there. You do get a bit of an almost kind of oaty smoothness out of this one, and I do wonder how much of that comes from from the passion fruit component that's been put into the beer. Passion fruit can give you a lovely kind of smoothness to beers like this, and you see that quite often in the Berliner Weisses and the Goses and things like that are being put out by different breweries. But I think the yeast is probably contributing to the smoothness of this beer quite a bit. If they're using 4 different kinds of yeast in this one, then that probably will play a role and what's going on here. But it's got a lovely just kind of smoothness. It's almost as drinkable as like fruit juice, this beer, to be honest with you. So yeah, as I say, this one is not in its prime condition just now, but I don't think that affects it too badly. The other thing that we've got going on is I think it might just be a little touch too cold, to be honest with you. But yeah, the question is it a nice beer? Absolutely, and I think the malty side and the yeasty side of this beer can go together very, very nicely. So let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit, you do have a little bit of earthiness in there, but not so much. As you move further forward along the side of the palate, it's got a wee bit of a kind of herbal quality in there. Then as you reach the front corners of the palate, you can get a little bit of a sort of floral aromaticity. And the Strata, the Citra, and the Nelson Sauvin are all going to contribute to that a little bit. I do wonder if there's another base hop, another bittering hop in there with this one, and probably I would think those other hops, being higher alpha acid and being, you know, quite fruity in terms of their profiles, probably they've been added within the last half hour of the boil or something. Remember, as you add hops into the beer, you know, the earlier on you add them, the more bitterness you get, and as you go gradually through the boil, you have the trade-off between bitterness, and you have the trade-off between having the more bitter components. Gradually you get more and more aroma and flavour out of them. So probably the 3 hops are added later on in the boil in this one. But yeah, around the front curve of the tongue there, you've got a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy component coming out, and you've got that lovely big soft component from the passion fruit in this one. So it's great, it really is very nice. But yeah, very nice stuff. So yeah, that front third of your palate then, as I always say, on that front third of your tongue, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. This one does have quite a, it's got a bit of an oily component to it, but I think the fruit addition really just makes it seem a little bit slicker than it would normally if it was a kind of regular IPA, if you like. So if you go towards the back of that front third of your tongue, you definitely get a bit of that kind of slightly grapefruity note, a bit of the kind of passion fruit, but it does seem like quite well rounded and quite juicy in a way. As you move further forward then, you get more of a mangoey quality to it, and then as you reach the kind of front half of that front third of your tongue, it's the Nelson Sauvin rather than the Citra and the Strata that starts to kind of take over. You get a lovely kind of soft, I'd say it's more of a green grapey flavour and almost a little bit gooseberry-like that you're getting from the Nelson Sauvin there. But on top of that, there is as you go into the aftertaste, you do get a very slight kind of almost like candied strawberry type thing. There is just a little bit of a candied, almost like a very slightly figgy type flavour out of this one. You do get just a little bit of that out of this beer, but yeah, I really like how that goes together in this one for sure. So yeah, but you can feel, as I always say when it comes to these beers that have fruit added to them, the fruit really just kind of takes away a little bit, it suppresses a bit of the kind of green side of the beer, so you can really feel that soft passion fruity quality around the kind of front curve of your tongue, and it pushes further back on the sides of the palate as well, so you can feel the sort of oiliness of the passion fruit, the soft passion fruit, just pushing back on some of that kind of fruity component there, and that I think is what gives the fruity side of this beer a more kind of slick quality to it actually. So this is one that's definitely very interesting in that regard actually, but it definitely gets a big thumbs up from me on the flavour component thing. I wish I could have tried this beer in its absolute prime, because I think this one has been sitting in the can for it's maybe been in the can about 6 weeks, 2 months, something like that, so it's just a little bit over its kind of prime perhaps, but it still comes across pretty damn solidly, I have to say. So yeah, well done to Dead End Brew Machine for this one. I would love to see like a kind of West Coast Imperial IPA from these guys, or a more kind of a straight up New England Imperial IPA. I don't know if they've done that yet, but that would be a very interesting thing for these guys going forward. But they also seem to be really good on the kind of heavy alcohol malty side of things too, as we've seen in the last 2 reviews. So a Scotch ale would be a really quite nice one to try from these guys actually. So yeah, hopefully that's something that Chris can look at going forward. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one then, So yeah, mouthfeel wise, I would say that this beer, it is pretty much middle of the mid-bodied part of the spectrum. A little bit more kind of, I would say, maybe leaning towards the top end of mid-bodied. Carbonation's very smooth. It's got a real kind of slickness to it, this one. In terms of hoppy bitterness, there's not a lot to report on this one. I would say that this beer is probably about 20-25 IBUs at most. I think the fruity component of this beer is really kind of suppressing much of the bitterness that this beer would have. Either that, or as I say, it has been in the can a little bit, I think, so probably a wee bit of the hoppy component has dropped off. But yeah, the hoppy notes come across as quite smooth in a lot of ways, and you've also got you've also got a really nice just kind of juicy fruity note to this one, but a little bit slick and a little bit oily in that sense too. So the hops contributing, and also the actual fruity addition to the beer as well. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. I think this is another solid beer from Dead End Brew Machine. Not surprised based on the other two beers that we've had from these guys so far, but yeah, it's beautifully done, and I'm just I'm glad that I got to review something from the lighter end of the spectrum for these guys. Like I said, fingers crossed we can get a can of Boris the Crusher in this one, but yeah, I would really look forward to reviewing one of those for you. But yeah, this one was the Total Fury 7.2% Passionfruit IPA. Beautifully done beer, this one. Drinking it a little bit past its prime, as I said, but it still comes across really nicely. This would be a really interesting summer release, so yeah, hopefully this is a beer that they re-release at some point. But like I say, I'd love to see some straight up New England West Coast, and maybe a black IPA from these guys could be interesting too. An Imperial Black IPA from Dead End Brew Machine I could see being very, very interesting. But yeah, well done to them, and I hope we can review more beers from these guys in the fairly near future. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Dead End Brew Machine. We will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the near future. Make sure you check out my social media, and thank you again for watching. This one was the Total Fury 7.2% Passionfruit IPA from Dead End Brew Machine, a gypsy contract brewer, whatever you want to call them, from Glasgow in the west of Scotland. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and make sure you check out this brewery. Catch you on the next review.